Thank you. Can we start off on the Bight? Was the department ever asked for advice by NOPSEMA on aspects of the BP Bight drilling program proposal? And if so, can you provide the request and your response to it?
My understanding, Senator, it's Matt Carl, First Assistant Secretary Environment Standards Division, that we've received no request.
No request. Okay, thank you. And I neglected to congratulate you on the appointment to the role. I think it's the first time I've had you in estimates this week, so you've probably been here for a million years, but anyway, hello. Was the department ever provided information about the Bight's drilling program assessment by NOPSEMA?
I might get Mr Geddes to answer that.
Senator Shane Gaddis, Assistant Secretary, Environment Standards Division, just moving in between roles at the moment, so formally Compliance and Enforcement. So NOPSEMA, right, as you're aware, is covered by a strategic assessment under the Act, so they're accredited to undertake our assessment process. Yep. We didn't get updates from them on the details of the assessment, but we did seek regular updates on the process that they were going through and where it was up to. So, can
you say that again? You didn't get assessment, but you
so we didn't
them?
ask for details of the technical details of the assessment, okay, but we asked for status updates from NOPSEMA on where the process was up to. So we would seek updates around when they'd sought more information from BP, yes, or when they hadn't approved a plan. We would get updates, yes, of that nature, okay, but we didn't involve ourselves in the details of the assessment. Okay,
sure. Are you able to provide the correspondence where you sought the update and any response that you received?
We could, Senator. Sometimes that was over the phone because they were responses to requests.
File notes, perhaps?
Yep, we could.
Yeah, great. All right, thank you. And lastly on this issue, was the department ever told about the reasons why NOPSEMA were rejecting and seeking further information from, particularly about the environment plan?
Senator, at a high level, those would have been the conversations I referred to before. So,
beg your pardon?
At a very high level, it would have been the conversations I referred to before in the status update. So we would have just been given a very high level summary about the decision and why it was taken, but great, not a really detailed statement of reasons. All right.
Well, I look forward to receiving those file notes and correspondence in whatever form they take that could shed a bit more light on that. Thank you. Can I just quickly duck back to the EPBC review? I think Senator Urquhart asked about this on Monday, about when the next 10-year review is due. It's obviously 2019 because that's, 20 years after the commencement of the Act. But can I just have a bit more detail on the timeframes? Will it have to commence and finish in 2019, and when will the work start and when will it finish?
Senator James Tregetha, First Assistant Secretary, Policy and Reform. In relation to that review, the Act stipulates that, as you know, that the review has to commence around 10 years, every 10 years. 2019, as you rightly point out, is the date. The Act doesn't prescribe there's no statutory requirement for a particular start and or finish date.
Yes.
That would be a matter for the government in terms of planning for the review and scoping the review out. Those are discussions that we have in the department around and with stakeholders around how we might proceed with that. But
have you had those discussions yet? And
we're in the process of that sort of consideration at this point.
Okay, so do you have a rough idea of when you might start that review?
I couldn't give you an exact time frame at this point, other than to say that clearly 2019 is a requirement for the review to start.
It's really a matter for the government to decide.
Okay, sure. So is that something the Minister would tell you?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Now, if I can move quickly.
3 minutes.
Yeah, thank you. That should do. Just on to Ackland Mine in Queensland. I see that it was deferred yet again this week. I'm not too sure who to ask that of. Perhaps that's you, Mr. Carl. Why was it deferred yet again?
The company, we've decided to have, there's been an extension granted so they can provide additional information for the Minister to consider. Okay,
so your department sought additional information?
Yes, we've written to them and requested additional information.
Okay, what was the nature of that information?
It was to address advice from the Independent Expert and Scientific Committees, from IESC advice. About impacts on the water, the water trigger.
Okay. Can you provide me more detail or notice? I'm just conscious of the time. Or perhaps even that request for further information, if you could supply that.
Yes, we can provide the request for further information.
And so what's the time frame? Have they specified a date that they will respond to you on?
We have an indication, but we've only just written to them recently, and we expect to get a confirmation of when they'll reply shortly.
Okay, well, perhaps could you also let me know, once you know, through the notice procedure,
Sure.
the time
Happy to,
frame
Senator.
of when they will then submit that subsequent information. And my last question, Chair, thank you for your patience, relates to a salmon farming proposal in Okehampton Bay. Pardon me if I've got the pronunciation wrong, in Tasmania. Okehampton, thank you. So I understand there's quite an old salmon farming state lease. It's about 20 years old, odd, and there's some concern with the recent decline in condition of the giant kelp forests. I understand the salmon farming's close enough to the kelp forest that it might have a further impact. So I'm interested in whether or not you're in discussions or you're expecting a referral. Would you consider that to be a prior existing approval? There's some discussion that, in fact, the intensity or the size might have changed significantly. Can you tell me what you know so far about that issue?
I'll just refer to my notes, Senator.
Thank you. Excuse me, sniffling.
So, Senator, we're aware of the Okehampton expansion. So it's a proposal at this stage.
Okay.
We've been in contact with the proponent of the expansion to let them know of their obligations under the Act.
Yes.
Obviously, anything that is an existing or pre-existing farm that's before the EPBC Act or before the listing of the kelp forest wouldn't necessarily need approval,
Yes.
so it'd be operating under an exemption. A significant expansion, as you're aware, would require a referral.
Yep.
So we're working with them at the moment to let them know what their obligations are,
Okay.
and then if they need to refer, we'll go through that process.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. We'll keep tracking that one. Thank you very much, Chair.